Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. Life with siblings is either really fun or the worst thing that could ever happen in your life. In my case, it was the latter. My sister was 6 years old when I was born. It was my parents' dream to have two daughters. They had planned everything down to the last detail about our lives. When they found out their first baby was a girl, they wished for their second child to be a girl too. Our names, our favorite color, and even our future were laid out for us before we were even born. And once I was brought into this world, the pressure that I was put under to follow in my sister's footsteps was massive. You see, she's the golden child, the one with good looks and athletic interests. She was everyone's favorite, be it a new classmate or a neighbor. My sister left such an impression that made them believe that she was the embodiment of perfection. And then there was me. I wouldn't say I was average, but compared to her, I was below average in my parents' eyes. They wanted me to look and act like her and restricted me from being myself. At an age where one struggles to find themselves, I was not even given the luxury of doing that. I was expected to follow a certain personality and style, and anything more or less than that was unacceptable. Growing up as the neglected child who stayed in their sister's shadow for the longest time, all I craved was my parents' attention and praise. The slightest mention of positive feedback from them used to make my day. Pathetic, I know, but it was everything to me at some point. My sister made things worse. She was my bully, and a good one at that. When I completed high school as valedictorian, my parents didn't attend my graduation since my sister was hosting a party at our summer house with her friends. They gave me several excuses, saying high school graduation wasn't that big of a deal. It was the breaking point for me. I knew I had to get away from them to live freely, so I opted for the college furthest from my home. I enjoyed my college life and studied my favorite subject, English, which wasn't acceptable to my parents. I learned to ignore them and live my life the way I wanted. There, I met a guy and fell in love. He saw me for who I was and not for my family or my sister. Usually, people only got closer to me just to get my sister's information, so the friends I had weren't even friends. In college, I got to learn the value of friendships, love, life, and everything in between. When I graduated with my friends and boyfriend, I didn't bother calling my family since I knew they would cook up another excuse to miss it. I got a job and moved in with my boyfriend. All that while, whenever my parents called me, the news about my sister was the only thing I heard from them. They never cared to ask anything about me, and I never had the energy to tell them about me. After a few years, my boyfriend and I got engaged and were set to marry later that year. I broke the news to my family, who, surprisingly, showed interest in the marriage. However, they were disappointed when they found out that my fiance was from a normal middle class family rather than a rich one. They wanted me to find someone like my sister did and get married into a socially high family. I was speechless at their suggestion, but chose not to reply to it. My sister was the last one to know about my wedding, and she never held back from expressing her distaste towards me and my fiance. She always spoke to me like I was the dirt beneath her shoes. But I had gotten used to it and was numb to her reactions. The wedding was planned with the help of my friends and my in laws. My in laws were the parents I never had. They treated me like their own and loved me endlessly, which made me cry more than on one occasion and gravitated towards them whenever I needed parental support and love. They knew that I struggled with my parents and sister and always reassured me that they would always be there for me in the end. My parents weren't satisfied with how we'd planned my wedding. It was a simple, small wedding meant to hold just my close friends and family. Both I and my fiance wanted a minimalistic wedding that could emphasize and represent our love and bond. My parents wanted me to change the details that would fit a bigger crowd and extravagant decorations. I was annoyed at their last minute suggestions and asked them to let the day be about me. It was evident that my sister was having a hard time having to accept the fact that my wedding day was going to be centered around me. She made sure that I was discouraged by her every time we met. On my wedding day, my parents called me in the morning and said that they wouldn't attend my wedding since my sister was throwing a party for her 7-year-old kid. They talked in such a way that I was naturally expected to understand their situation. I was getting married, for God's sake. I broke down in tears when I realized that I would never be important in their lives, and it pained me to accept the hard truth. My in laws rushed to my side and calmed me down. My fiance was furious when they heard about my parents not attending and even asked me if I wanted to postpone the wedding. After a few minutes to myself, I asked them to continue the ceremony. The wedding hall currently held the most important people in my life, and if my parents weren't inside the hall, it depicted their place in my life. The wedding went by smoothly. It was so beautiful and everything my husband and I had dreamed of. I noticed missed calls and texts from my parents updating me about the party my sister hosted. Not even congratulations. I decided that it was time I cut them off from my life. I called them then and there and told them that they were no longer part of my life. They were livid, and before I heard their replies, I hung up and blocked their contacts. I was so mad. Almost a week later, they came to our apartment and demanded an explanation for cutting them off from my life. I stated how they never cared for me or my achievements and how I was ignored all my life compared to my sister. They gave the typical answer that they did all that because they loved me. I scoffed. The truth was never appealing, but I had learned to accept it. Just then, my in laws visited us and were surprised to see my parents. They noticed my discomfort and asked me if I wanted them gone from the house. I nodded, and they calmly asked my parents to leave. This struck a nerve, and my parents started accusing me of using my in laws to make them jealous, and stated that my sister would never do something that hateful and was very grateful for them. They even insulted my husband and in laws, and that was the last straw for me. Before I knew it, I was screaming at them to get out. They were taken aback but left. My in laws hugged me and comforted me the whole day after they left, but it still hurts to think that my parents never loved me. AITA for cutting them off from my life. It was almost a few weeks later I noticed my sister's Instagram post. She was standing near my bike with a caption that said she earned it. I was tearing up when I saw it. I bought that bike after my high school graduation with my own hard-earned money, since my parents refused to buy me a graduation gift. The amount of emotional attachment I had with that bike was indescribable. During my marriage planning, I had arranged for the bike to be shifted to my new apartment. It was difficult for it to be taken with me during my college days, so I left it at my parents' house. I even notified my parents that I was taking it away after a few more formalities. I called my sister and asked her about my bike. She simply replied that it was my parents' gift to her. I felt betrayed by their behavior. Without thinking, I went to see my parents. They were surprised to see me, but when I raised the issue of my bike, their surprise slowly subsided. They kept arguing that since I was married and had better in-laws, they didn't think the bike was a necessity for me anymore. So they gifted it to my sister. She always wanted that bike ever since I bought it, not because she was interested in it, but just because it was mine. I felt my blood boiling and asked them to bring it back. They refused, and I had no option other than to file a case against them. They kept arguing with me, saying I was ungrateful and indifferent towards them, but I paid no mind. My husband and my in-laws were shocked to find out about my bike being given to my sister. They knew how much it meant to me. My in-laws offered to talk it out with my parents on my behalf, but I knew they wouldn't be treated equally by my parents. My husband and I went to the police to file the case. They soon called my parents and questioned them about my bike. Even my sister was called in. They tried their best to argue and said that they wanted to take the case further. We were shocked to see their determination to put me down. For once, I was ready to fight against them and accepted it. It's been almost 3 months since the case ended. We won, obviously. But my parents and sister were adamant till the end to not give it to me. As punishment for giving the bike to my sister without my consent, they were asked to give me extra money. Their reaction was priceless. I walked out of there after officially cutting ties with my family for good. I am happy with my husband and my in laws, and there is nothing I would do to change it. Your parents and sister don't deserve you. NTA. You knew how much they hurt you in the past and yet invited them to your wedding. It's their fault for not attending it and using silly excuses. You did well by cutting them off from your life. To be honest, I'm proud of you for staying strong all these years. It's never easy to feel ignored and labeled as worthless by your own family. I'm glad you found parental love from your in laws. Much love to you, your husband, and your in laws. I'm a 28-year-old male, am married to my amazing husband, age 27, male. In case it wasn't obvious, we're in a gay relationship, which is what makes this whole situation so baffling to me. Here's the background. I'm a stay at home dad to our 4 and 2-year-old daughters. H works very long hours, so I end up doing the lion's share of the housework and childcare. I honestly love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wanted to have a family and be a stay at home dad since I was really young. And H is amazing about helping whenever he's home, so it's really the perfect situation for us. But my family has never really accepted it, and they always think that he's taking advantage of me or that I secretly resent it. He made a joke about me being similar to a 50s housewife a month or two ago, and it kind of stuck. He occasionally calls me his housewife, mostly in private, and it's kind of turned into a silly pet name for us. I think it's cute and funny, and he would 100% stop if I asked him to, so I don't see the issue with it. H and I were at a family gathering yesterday when he teasingly referred to me as his housewife. I didn't mind, and it's pretty well known among my family that it's a running joke between us. But my sister, 20, who usually doesn't show, flipped her lid. She called H homophobic and told him it was offensive for him to try and feminize me. She said that if he wanted a wife, he could go get one instead of trying to turn me into one. We were both totally bewildered. H is 100% gay and has absolutely no interest in turning me into a woman. I'm very comfortable in my skin as a man too, and I'm probably more traditionally masculine than H is. I was pissed and I told her that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard and to get away from us if she's going to accuse H of something so severe. She started crying and left, and the rest of us left pretty soon after because it had gotten awkward. H and I are still really pissed, and I don't think I did anything wrong, but my sister keeps blowing up my phone, and my mom thinks I should just apologize to her. I really don't want to. So, AITA? NTA. No way, no how. She made an assumption and made an ass of herself. What you might consider is letting her know that you appreciate that she's trying to advocate for you, but speaking over you is both infantilizing and demeaning. Suggest she look into the phrase, nothing about us without us. It's mostly about political action, but it has its application in societal issues as well. She can't be an effective advocate for the LGBTQ community if she doesn't. Actually, listen to the actual members of said community she's trying to advocate for. NTA, the housewife reference clearly triggered your sister, and it's wholly possible she didn't properly articulate why. It's certainly not homophobic, but it could come across as sexist, given its historic connotations. The use of the term may therefore be offensive to her, as you are neither a wife nor a woman, using an arguably derogatory term specific to her gender. This is just an idea. I could easily be off the mark. It may make life easier to simply talk it out with her and keep the reference strictly between your husband and you around her, if she's still bothered by it. I, 29 female, typically babysit my niece, 4 female, twice a week, while my sister, 26 female, is at work. I only watch her for 2 hours between her leaving for work and her fiance getting home. Saturday night, I went out with some friends. There were 7 of us, so we took 2 different cars. 4 in my car and 3 in another. I was following the other car as we were going to another friend's house in the country that I hadn't been to before. Well, the worst happened. The other car was hit at 60 miles an hour. The car rolled. It was bad. Only 2 people were hurt. A kid from the third car who was life-flighted out of the scene, and my closest friend, Stan, 30, male, who was taken from the scene by ambulance and transported to a major hospital in Arroway. Stan fractured his spine, broke a bone in his arm in 3 places, broke his wrist in his other hand, and had a concussion. Thankfully, he was released Tuesday, but will have to go back over the next few weeks for multiple surgeries. No, I don't think he should have been released yet. His entire upper body is in a cast right now, so he needs full-time care. He doesn't have family or an SO that can help, so he is staying with my husband and I so we can care for him. So here's where I might be the AH. When we were told he could come home as long as he had a caregiver, I let my sister know I would not be able to babysit my niece for a few weeks. I had kept her updated through everything, so she knew I would be his caregiver. At first, she said it was fine, just focus on Stan and try to take care of myself as well. I'm 25, pregnant. This was until it actually came down to it. I'm taking care of Stan, my dog, his 2 dogs, and my own child, 9. It's a lot. When it came time for my niece to need a sitter, my sister told me she can't find another sitter and that her daughter wouldn't be much work. I told her I have too much on my plate right now and there was no way I could add a 4-year-old to the mix. She went ballistic on me over it. She told me family comes first and I should be more concerned about her daughter than Stan. This sparked a fight where I warned her if she couldn't be reasonable, that I wouldn't watch my niece ever again. My mom got involved and said she understands this is a bad situation, but my sister needs my help too. I told her I can't help everyone, and Stan is my main focus right now. Now, they're both refusing to speak to me because I should be able to fit my niece in because Stan mostly lays around right now. I'm starting to feel like I could be wrong here. I would only have my niece for 2 hours a day, twice a week. AITA? NTA, your friend was in a horrendous wreck and needs full-time care. Your sister needs to stop being so selfish and get things in perspective. Besides, this is her child, not yours. Ultimately, taking care of her is your sister's responsibility, not yours. If she can't find another sitter, that is her problem, not yours. You have been extremely generous to your sister doing what you have done already for free. She needs to be grateful for what you have done so far. Let's face it, it's not that she can't find childcare, it's that she can't find childcare that she wants to pay for. There was no reason to bring your mother into this except to add another person to bully you, and the silent treatment is a form of emotional manipulation and abuse. If you give in to this, you can expect more treatment like this in the future every time you try to stand up for yourself. NTA. No to your mom saying sis needs your help. Your sister has received your help regularly and reliably up until now. And the moment you need her help, by simply finding alternate arrangements for a brief time, suddenly it's not help. It's an obligation that you were never told you don't get to say no to. Well, she has made it clear she doesn't respect your needs. Your mom has made it clear your sister's needs trump yours. So good news, mom and sis can buddy up. Mom can watch niece from now on. And what with nothing else ever being more important than that, sis will never have to worry about being mildly inconvenienced by someone else's severe life event ever again. Hooray! NTA, your sister only cared as long as it was convenient for her. When it was no longer convenient, she stopped being sympathetic and caring about what you were going through. Your mom siding with her shows that she too is prioritizing your sister when they know you're going through a lot. You're human. You can only handle so much, and what you are doing for Stan is amazing and so generous. Don't let them gaslight or guilt trip you into thinking you're an AH because you most certainly are not. Honestly, it might be time to go low contact or NC for a little bit with sis and mom, either until they apologize or until you have less on your plate. Regardless, certainly don't babysit for your sister until she apologizes because right now, it seems like she just wants to use you for childcare and doesn't care about what you're going through.